episode 11. Today, we start a new series called How to Hack Your Thoughts, Part 1. We have a great lineup of some really great minds as our guests. In the last episode, we asked this question: Is silence golden or deafening? And today, we're going to talk about how to hack those thoughts when it is deafening. Wouldn't you like to get into the minds of people who know how to hack their thoughts? Well, today in the studio, we have someone who does just that. Get ready to hear tonight's guest, Marc DeBoer, who will be sharing his thoughts on how he hacks his thoughts. So stay right there. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome to our show again, and so excited to have Marc DeBoer with us in the studio today. We're going to have a great conversation on how to hack your thoughts. So, Marc, welcome to the show and welcome to Journey of Self Love. Great to have you here. Excited to hear how you hack your thoughts and your unique hacking methodology.
Thanks, Chloe. I really am glad to be here. Happy to talk to you about this. And I think it's gonna be a wonderful conversation. So thank you.
All right. Okay. So, today the language is hackathon and, all of that great stuff. And I thought, okay, right. What about mind hack? And on the previous episode, we talked about negative and positive thoughts, having pros and cons. And the question was, is silence golden or deafening? Not all golden silence is positive, and not all deafening silence is negative. So let's just dive in and, on how you hack your thoughts. Here's my first question. Oh, is there something that you want to share?
No, I think it's fantastic. I think things can be two things at one time.
Yes.
Golden and deafening, and it's a matter of perspective and how you perceive it.
Yes, yeah, that's true. So here's a first question based on what we just on the silence and being golden and deafening. When silence is golden, what do you say to yourself when you're caught in that moment?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I've really spent a lot of time over the last, let's say, decade of really listening to the question that people are asking, but also the words they're using. So you say the word golden, right? So what do we associate with the word golden? Maybe something good, something prolific, something fantastic. So when is silence good? When is silence great? It makes me think, my first reaction is makes me think of a study, I forget when, maybe a couple of years ago, from Queen's University, where they found that the average person has about 6,000 thoughts a day. It's right off the bat, it's a big number. We need to learn, all of us need to learn how to become our own best friend, because the truth is, no school, K through 8, 9 through 12, and college and beyond, is going to teach us. It's just not part of any curriculum, and it's something that we need to learn on our own. As a parent, it truly makes me worried for my own two boys. Because if you go back, let's say to 1920, 1930, and you actually looked at the data people were consuming, back 100 years ago. So that would be books, magazines, maybe the radio. There's a study out there that shows people 100 years ago consumed 6 megabytes of data. Whereas today, with the access we have to technology, people are consuming over 34 gigabytes on a daily basis.
Wow.
So 1,000 megabytes makes up 1 gigabyte. And they were doing 6 megabytes, we're doing 34 gigabytes a day. So that's the difficult part, right? Most people today don't know how to be with themselves. Most people believe that they must be entertained every moment. So the biggest culprit of this, I think, is technology and social media. And we can pinpoint that back to the invention of the iPod in 2011. And it's even more interesting that we can go further and look at another really interesting study that I love reading about. Back in 2014, there was a guy from the University of Virginia. I think his name was Tim Wilson, and he published an article. And don't take me for the exact numbers here, but he posted an article that showed high 60s, low 70s% of men were willing to administer a mild electric shock to themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. So it's a really fascinating idea that we would rather give ourselves a shock than sit with our moments. So then in that essence, why can't silence be golden? Why can't it be something that we relish and we say, I am comfortable with sitting with myself and willing to talk to myself? And perhaps we don't have enough time to dig into that today, but when you look at where we were just 10 years ago to today and the rise of the advent of technology and social media, there's clearly an epidemic that's rising here that at the national or international level, we're not willing to discuss. And we can't solve it until we're willing to discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great information there, Mark. And when you talk about 34 gigabytes a day of consumption, that's a lot of noise.
That's a lot of noise.
That's deafening right there.
How do you find a moment to be by yourself when you're consuming that much data?
Yeah.
How do you learn to turn it off and say, I'm seeking a moment of golden silence. I actually want that.
Yeah.
The world would rather show you an advertisement, get on your phone, look at social media. We have to go out there and proactively seek golden silence.
When we think about texts or emails, we have notifications.
Mm-hmm.
We have dings, right? Every time there's an email or a text, there's a ding.
Mm-hmm.
But do we need those dings? Because whether we do dings or not, we're still checking our email and our text.
Correct.
It is being so trained by the noise. And even if it's not there, we can hear it somewhere in the space or in our, in the subconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Go and check. Where's the text? Is there an email that's there? So here's the next question. When silence is deafening, how do you bring yourself out of that?
Yeah.
We talk about the 34 gigabytes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noise. How do you bring yourself out?
Isn't that interesting? Again, thinking of those words, silence, the absence of sound, deafening, the opposite, so much of noise that it's too loud, so silence being deafening. I have two young boys. My nights are usually spent reading books, and my favorite book, or I shouldn't say that, I should say my favorite author to read is Dr. Seuss. And one of my favorite books of Dr. Seuss is Oh, the Places You Will Go. And I've read that book so many times that it's practically memorized at this point. And when I think about silence is deafening, I think about it can be all consuming at times. And there's a specific line in the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You Will Go. And it says, all alone, whether you like it or not, alone is something you'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. And
I love that.
I could we could make a whole episode with that book. But that's it. And it reminds me of the study that I just mentioned from out of the University of Virginia. It's to many people the idea of being alone is terrifying. That we have a true mental health epidemic rising, and there's just not enough discussion around it. So the idea that silence is deafening, I think, is something that we all need to grapple and we all need to discuss and come to terms with. That silence doesn't need to be scary. Silence doesn't need to be, because I think when we think about the two choices we have in life, I think in any aspect of our life relative to any decision, there's two choices, and that is, do I choose to accept fear or do I choose to accept love? And silence is deafening is something that's much more closely associated with fear. That I
Yes.
am scared of what will come out of the silence. I'm scared of what I will think. Instead of embracing the opposite, which is I'm embracing love.
Mhm.
That yes, this is difficult, this is challenging, but I'm willing to meet it there. I'm willing to understand it and accept it and listen to it.
Mhm.
That I don't need to be afraid and fear it. That I can accept it with love.
Mhm. And embracing love is embracing self,
Mm,
learning how to love who we are, because we lost our voice in the
mm,
noise. And when you talked about being alone is terrifying,
mm-hmm,
the podcast was birthed out of silence and loneliness. I was alone, and I'm
mm,
like, how do I fill the space? It's deafening. And the more I sat in the silence, the more I'm like, okay, this is it. You get with the program. And
mm.
so I started to embrace the silence. When I embraced the silence, I then started to embrace me and my self-love. So
Isn't
that's
it
the
isn't
journey of to self-love.
isn't it interesting that you found the answer in the silence through communication,
Yes.
through using the art of the verbal word of speaking to
Mhm.
people through communication, that you found the answer as talking about it.
Yes. Yeah, amazing.
It's
Right.
beautiful.
I love this conversation, Mark. But you and I, we can go places in our conversation. We've done it too many
I
times.
agree. I agree.
Here's another question.
Mm-hmm.
Negativity bias is real. We
Mm-hmm.
just go to what is wrong. We go to what the challenge is. We go to what's not working. We go there and spend a lot of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And all those negative thoughts can take us a downward spiral. We start ruminating, and all that stuff happens. What negative thoughts go through your mind? What
Mm.
are some things that you kind of default to, and how do you hack that?
Yeah, I think that's it's a great question and great point. And I think my first reaction that I come to of being a parent to two young boys, my first reaction is, will I be? I think every parent goes through this. Will I be good enough?
Mhm.
Will I support enough? Will I be there enough? Will I? All associated with the same.
Mhm.
Um, and I think every parent goes through that, especially when they're younger.
Mhm.
Mine are 5 and 7,
Mhm.
two boys, and it's challenging. And I think negative thoughts can really dig deep because, especially in today's world, right now, today, with everything being so expensive and having access or not having access to a lot, and the fact that we're seeing unemployment rise right now, and um, just everything can be challenging. I think of another challenge I have of, spirituality and religion is very important in our family, but to a lot of other people my age, it's not important. So what we find is that they have scheduled baseball games, scheduled soccer games, scheduled football games on Sundays, and we have to make choices. And then it's, am I doing enough for my children?
Mhm.
It reminds me of a quote that I love, from the movie Batman,
Okay.
where Harvey Dent says, "The night is darkest just before the dawn, and I promise you, the dawn is coming."
Say it again. That's beautiful.
Harvey Dent said, "The night is darkest just before the dawn, and I promise you, the dawn is coming." Which is
Wow.
actually, I don't know who the writer was of that, but it's actually a play on words. It goes back much further in time from Gandhi, where Gandhi said, "Divine guidance often comes when the horizon is the blackest."
Ah, wow.
So the quotes have the same meaning,
Yeah.
but it's for me, it's remembering that I'm in this moment now, and what I always start and step back on is, first I want to determine where the root cause of this is coming from, and remembering that negative thoughts can only consume you
Mhm.
based on how much time you give them.
Yes.
That accepting negative emotions, whatever they may be, sadness or unhappy, it's remembering they are what they are, a
Mhm.
temporary state of mind.
Yeah.
That they can consume you for days, weeks, or months, or they can consume you for minutes and that's a temporary state, and that's a length of time that you choose.
Mhm.
So I always make sure when I feel, which I constantly feel, which I think most parents do, I always feel like, am I doing enough? And I
Mhm.
always say in that moment, this is a feeling, and feelings are meant to be felt. So we should
Mhm.
feel that feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then it's saying, okay, it's been 30 seconds, it's been 5 minutes, it's been 10 minutes. I have felt that feeling. I have I have digested it. I've understood it. I see it there. And I understand I'm going to make the conscious decision to move forward from it. That I
Mhm.
am not going to let you consume.
Mhm.
However, then what comes, from later on, whether that's through meditation or spiritual thinking, whatever that might be for you, it's what is the root cause? Where is that coming from? And whether that's speaking with a therapist, speaking to your spouse, speaking to your best friend, your pastor, whatever that may be, or more importantly, the topic of this conversation today, speaking with yourself,
Mhm.
finding that root cause of where is that feeling coming from.
Yeah. There's Stephen Covey talks about this in his Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. He
Yep.
talks about the circle of influence. And there's three different circles. So the one circle is direct control. The second circle is indirect
Mm,
control. And the third circle is no control. So
mm,
we don't have any control. We spend more time in where we don't have control.
yeah. Isn't that interesting?
So being able to say, this is what I can control. This is what is in my control right now. And when I heard you say, am I doing enough for my sons? I
Mhm,
keep thinking, Jethro, when he was a little
mhm,
boy, he's 28 right now. Um, and yeah, I've been there, as well. And I now looking back, and he says, "Oh, mom, but this and that." Now he can just say whatever he wants to say. So I
mhm,
said, you know what? I did the best at that point. I
mm.
gave you my best. And now, when he listens, he sees it as a mature young man and he understands, yeah, she did do her best. In that moment,
Mhm.
didn't sound like it was, mom was giving her best,
Yeah.
because mom was pushing back on X, Y, and Z. But now, in hindsight, it's like, yeah, she did give her best.
I don't know if I can classify this as a hack per se, but you're absolutely right. And I can't recommend to enough people, one of the best things you can do if your parents are still alive, to go speak to them and ask them, what was it like when you were in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s? What was going on around in the world? This could have been during World War II, during Vietnam, during the Korea War, during a financial collapse, a recession. It it's so easy to judge the past and to look at it from your own lens, but
Yeah.
to speak to them and say, what were the struggles you were going through? For all you know, your parents might have been unemployed, and
Mm.
and they were doing the best they can. And to remember, again, we're doing it out of two options. We're doing it out of fear and love, and every parent will say the same thing, that I have one thing and one thing only, and that is love for my child, and I will do anything for that child.
Mm.
And but you have to speak to them and understand where they were coming from and understand their perspective. And it's one of the reasons why, for me, and perhaps maybe this is a hack, one of the things I've started doing for both of my boys, maybe once a month, maybe once a week, it depends on how I feel, I keep a journal. And in that journal, I don't write like a typical journal, I write to them. And but I don't, sometimes I write about, what's going on in my day. And, today I did this, today I did that. Sometimes I write stories. Sometimes I read this good book, or let me tell you about a story about when I was being raised and I was your age and the challenges I faced. And here's something I'm going through right now. And so I've been writing in it now for 7 years, and I'm going to give it to them when they're both 18 years old, to let them read and to really understand what their dad was going through, to
Mm.
say, like, there's no misinterpretation. These are my words, and I'm writing it in pen, so you can see my handwriting. So you get a better sense of the words and what I'm trying to say and what I was going through. And I don't know if it's a good idea, but I'll let you know in 10 years if it works. But I think it's a good idea for most
I
people
think,
too.
yeah, yeah, I think it's a good journaling is a fantastic hack.
Hmm.
It is. For me, it's a proven thing. And again, a lot of people associate journaling with, oh, I have to put all my emotions in here and how I'm feeling, but that's not all that journaling is.
Correct.
Yeah, journaling is being able to create a new future, a dream,
Mm-hmm.
writing your dream, or writing a moment of realization,
Mm-hmm.
or something that you heard that you want to just write down because it made such an impact. So journaling takes so many different forms. Okay, so let's move on here because I have this question for you. Have you experienced a time when you had to hack a positive thought?
Mm.
You had to hack a positive thought.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting because positive thoughts are good thoughts. At least, that's what most people think. And I think that too. Positive is a good thing. So it's a really interesting idea. I would say in my own life, in my own instance, I would say yes, I've had to hack positive thoughts before. I think I do it constantly the more I think about it. And that's allowing positive thoughts not to consume me.
Mm.
So my background,
Say
well,
more about that. I like what you just said. Allowing positive thoughts not to consume you.
correct. So like
Unpack that.
for me, I've I've always aspired to want to be a serial entrepreneur. I've owned businesses in the past, some successful, some not. I own two businesses now, both of them side businesses. But my struggle is that, as from a positive thought, I always have a new idea. I
Mm.
look at the world and all I see are solutions and ideas. Not all of them great solutions, but solutions nonetheless. And what comes with that are these positive feelings of what could become. And I've learned over the years that for me, it's critical that I vet my deep ideas to, instead of
Mm.
holding them inside and say, I'm going to work on them. It's, well, let me step back. Let me look at the practicality of idea. Let me talk to friends. Let me
Mm.
talk to people who are maybe in that world. For me, it's finding, it's attempting to find, because I haven't found yet, a harmony between enthusiasm and discernment,
Mm.
ensuring that every idea is not just a fleeting idea, but it's a well considered thought and opportunity. That as an entrepreneur, I always want to go to the next thing and solve the next big idea and so help the world.
Yeah.
But they consume me
Mm.
because I could probably show, I probably have on my computer a list of just ideas after ideas that to me they're positive thoughts, but it's practicality as well.
Yes. Yes. So, so am I right by saying that when you need to hack a positive thought, you vet your ideas?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that how you
And and most importantly, not being afraid to talk to other people about them.
Mm.
It's I think that's the biggest thing we're finding is that it's communication. And as
Mm.
when we look at the mental health crisis, specifically just coming off, we're in the month of July now. We just come off the month of June, which is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mm.
And it's something that doesn't really get a lot of press. It's not really spoken about, but it's through communication. It's
Mm.
it's what's
Yeah.
most important.
Mhm. Yeah. A great conversation, Mark, really. So, what is something that you would like to share with those listening to this podcast on how to hack their thoughts? If there was something that you want to share and you said, this is
I
it.
One of the things that I've been putting a lot of thought into lately, and really diving deep through talking to people and reading a lot of books about, and what I'm still discovering in my own life, and I say this purely as opinion, that life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself.
Mhm.
You've been given all the tools necessary to create yourself. So the question really is, are you brave enough to create the person who you were ultimately meant to be?
Mhm.
And I think it's it's challenging to a lot of people because it depends on where you are in your life.
Yeah.
It's if you're young or old or in between, it could mean going back to school. It could mean leaving a person or leaving a situation or leaving a place.
Mm.
But it's remembering the biggest obstacle to becoming ourselves is ourselves.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We stand in the way of ourselves, of what is great. Um, when you say, "Are you brave enough?" If somebody said to you, um, "I'm not brave enough because this is going on or that's going on," what is something that they can do or say to themselves, or what's a self-talk that they could, bring, help to get past that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any one word or phrase or activity that anyone can do to push past it, as opposed to, as the old Chinese proverb says, I believe it says, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time.
Mm.
It's one step at a time.
Mm. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's not looking at that you're going to solve whatever problem it's going to be right away.
Mm.
It's that, right now perhaps you're facing a weakness or a deficiency or what it may be, and okay, it's going to take time to break that down. So at first, are you brave enough to admit that this is something that needs to be conquered, that I want to go after it, that I want to do this, that I want to reinvent myself, or I
Mhm.
want to change the direction of my life? It starts with making that acknowledgement that yes, I do want to. And then
Mhm.
from there, taking bite-sized steps towards, what that goal is. So, when we want to talk about journaling, it's
Mhm.
talk to your journal, write down your goal, write it down in big letters,
Mhm.
and own it, and look at it every day and read it every day.
Yeah.
And then from there, what are the steps that you have to do to get towards that? What's step one? What's step two? There's never going to be a right answer, and
Mhm.
life is never a straight line. And life is going to have ups and downs, and it's going to go backwards a few bit, and then it's going to go forwards and then down. But that's okay. Progress is moving forward,
Mhm.
and you can.
Straight lines are boring, by the way.
Extremely boring.
Straight lines are boring. The same color is boring. There's
Mm-hmm.
shades of gray. Life is shades of gray. So if we had to have a straight line, guess what? We all going to be bored out of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So being able to, and here's what I'm hearing: small, tiny steps, reinvent yourself and love yourself. The only way you are the only person that stands in the way of what you want. Um, so, Mark, and we at the close of our time today, is it a quote that comes to mind that you would like to close on?
There's two quotes
Oh.
that stand. Well, unfortunately, the more I think about it, the more I come to mind. The first one that I think of is again from Dr. Seuss, when he said in a book, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?"
Mhm.
And another one, which is a favorite quote of mine, I think about probably every day. Um, it's from a person named Charles Horton Cooley, and I'll probably have to say it a few times, but it's a beautiful quote. And he says, "I am not what I think I am, and I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Say it again.
I am not what I think I am."
Mhm.
So that's, again, what we think about ourselves. "And I am not what you think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am.
Yeah.
I think Chloe thinks this about me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always thought about that because when we think about this topic of silence, and silence is deafening and silence is golden, it's we're too consumed in what I think you think I am.
Yes. Yes.
And
The
that just
noise.
That's where the noise comes from. And when we can break that down and stop worrying and stop thinking about what other people think
Mm,
you are,
yeah.
you'll start to see the shift.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Mark, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming along, for sharing all your hacks and what your thought life is like. Thank you for being honest, for being vulnerable, and for sharing from your heart. So we come to the end of our show. Like I always end our shows by this quote: Your story is changing, and you are the storyteller of your story. Your story are your thoughts. Your thoughts are your self talk. Who you are becoming are your thoughts. And what you tell your brain is what your brain remembers. And here's what really matters: who you are becoming is greater than who you were before this moment. So please go ahead, share in the chat. How do you hack your thoughts? And let's share that knowledge. Let's share the wisdom with everyone that uh, drops in on this episode. Coming up next week is another mind hacking conversation with another exciting guest. Remember, powerful declarations are inside of you and they're waiting to be manifested. See you next week for another great episode on how to hack your thoughts. Take care.